Hi everyone, I'm Dale Smith, aka Journo Dale, and we're here to talk about Canadian politics. It's time to take your questions, and we've got two this week. Our first one comes from the Patreon, and David Hutchison asks, any insight on the pending Quebec Constitution Bill and its impact on Canada? So, yes, Quebec's government has tabled a bill which is intended to be a provincial constitution. It's got some issues around that, particularly because it's not going to be a singular document for the kind of constitutional sort of documents for Quebec in terms of the Quebec Charter of Rights, that kind of stuff. It's not actually included in there as well, which is kind of an issue. And I did write a piece about this for the National Magazine, and I'm going to link it in the description below. But in terms of the impact, the broader impact on Canada, there's a couple of things. First of all, there are some sections in this purported constitution which aim to unilaterally amend the 1867 federal constitution, which they can't really do. But they've sort of attempted in the past and nobody's pushed back on it, so they think they can get away with it again. So that could be a problem, particularly when they want to do things like rename the office of the lieutenant governor, things like that. They really shouldn't be allowed to do that unilaterally because that should require the broader amending formulas for the federal constitution. So we'll see how that particular goes, particularly if the federal government is going to challenge it or not. Of course, it hasn't passed yet, so and it may not because it's become pretty controversial given the way in which it was introduced. So we'll see there. But the other thing I would say, the possible bigger impact would be the fact that this could inspire Danielle Smith and in turn Scott Moe to do similar things on their own. And when they get in their minds to do things like this, shenanigans tend to happen and they tend to push a lot of lines. And I think that's probably what the danger of this could be. Part of why this has become controversial is because, well, it's perfectly fine for provinces to have their own constitutions. And most of them are, their constitutional documents are a collection of different statutes and the unwritten principles of the Constitution as we understand it. But in order for these kinds of constitutional documents to have a particular kind of legitimacy, they tend to require broad input in terms of what goes into it, and then broad support, often in the form of some kind of a referendum. BC put through a provincial constitution, sort of, a few years ago. It didn't go through a referendum process, so there are questions as to its legitimacy. But they nevertheless did go through a process like that. And Quebec is sort of trying to do the same thing, but they didn't do any consultations up front. It came directly from the Provincial Justice Minister's office, and they were going to do some kind of consultations post hoc, which is a problem in and of itself, aside from all of the other problematic elements in that constitution bill, of which I heard, a certain professor consider elements of it to be Banana Republic-esque, and so on. So, yeah, I think, to kind of recap, there's some particular legal questions around things they want to do around the 1867 Constitution. But I think in the broader thing, we risk a particular sort of contagion of certain provinces wanting to put their own constitutional documents through for the sake of putting together certain problematic assertions about what they feel about their province, more than they already have. And that can cause broader problems just in terms of social cohesion and so on, because they're trying to do things narrowly for their own political gain rather than as a unifying exercise for their province or their place in confederation. So that's kind of how I see it. Our second question this week is on Bluesky, and Patricia Sutherland asks, I have a somewhat strange question about all those many pundits on the political shows who work for strategy firms. What do those people and those firms do in their day jobs? There seem to be an awful lot of them. So the short answer is that they are mostly lobbyists and or government relations. And generally what that means is these are people who are associated with parties, as in they used to be staffers or campaigners, and they still have ties and associations, and they still help out on campaigns and so on. So they still have these ties with the parties, and then they use that in order to help clients interface with government. So small organizations and so on who can't generally afford their own lobbying efforts will engage these kinds of firms to help them to get their message through the government, and who can help them craft messages in particular ways or learn how to properly engage with governments. And you tend to have people who come from different party backgrounds so that they can craft or tailor to particular ways because they have links with those parties. And if those parties are in power, they may have more access than others. So that's kind of what that generally means. That's, a way for these panel shows to have people who are associated with parties but who aren't necessarily MPs or staffers on to talk about issues through particular political lenses, is because they're not necessarily in the day-to-day. So there's less of an issue of people talking out of turn or saying things they might not otherwise be able to, and so on. And also this is, for the panel shows, these particular panelists are ones that they get on a regular basis. They're able to book on a consistent basis, and that's partially why these shows rely on these panels, is because it fills a gap in the programming minutes that they have on a consistent basis, rather than needing to scramble for news to fill the whole hour block, rather than just needing to do the half hour that isn't taken up by the panel. So that's kind of how that tends to work. That's kind of what those people do in their day jobs. And hopefully that helps to clarify it. And that's everything for this week. Thanks for your questions. Join us again next week for some more Canadian politics. I'm Dale Smith. It's at journo_Dale on Twitter and journodale_no_ on Bluesky. And don't forget to like the video, share, subscribe, and support us on Patreon. Thanks, everyone.